What's going on, guys? My name is Steve. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I'm just an American guy on a journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Today, we're going to be reacting to how is the United Kingdom so rich? I honestly don't know what to expect in regards to this. If you asked me how wealthy of a nation I thought the UK was, I would definitely place it in my top 10 list, possibly my top 5 list. I know that the U.S. and China share number 1 and 2 position in terms of GDP. I think that's probably the number they're going to use, but I'm not sure. But beyond that, I really don't know what the nations after the top 2 spots would be. I'm sure Brazil's up there, possibly India because of the population. I know Germany is a powerhouse in the European Union. There's obviously a number of other countries I could bring up as having fairly wealthy nations, especially in the West. UK would definitely be up there. I don't know what number, though. So this should be interesting. Let's go ahead and check out how is the United Kingdom so rich?
How on earth can the country which is the 80th largest by land size in the world,
80th.
with the 21st largest population, have the 5th largest economy on the planet, with an economy size of around 3.1 trillion?
Wow, that really is impressive when you think about the land mass being number 80 and the population being number 21, yet making it to spot number 5. That's really impressive. Obviously, China, the number 1 most populated country in the world, makes sense that it would have a high GDP. The United States being the number 3 most populated country in the world, makes sense that it could be number 1. But being, and the United States has also got a huge landmass. But look in the UK, number 80 in landmass, number 21 in population, to reach number 5, that really is impressive. Seriously, that's impressive.
Trillion US dollars, the United Kingdom stands as the country with the 5th highest GDP in the world, placing them above India, a nation with a population over 20 times larger and 13 times more land size. So how is this relatively small country so damn rich? In this video, we shall find out. Alright, before we begin, let's have some quick fire financial statistics, so that we've got some reference and baseline for understanding the wealth of the UK. The UK as a whole comprises of 4 different countries: England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Great Britain is just the island part, so it excludes Northern Ireland. It has a GDP of 3.1 trillion US dollars, a GDP per capita of just over $46,000, an average salary of $41,000. It exports $837 billion worth of goods. The average house price across the UK is $367,000 US dollars. However, the average house price in London is $705,000 US dollars. I've always thought that apart from London, the UK doesn't really have any super sprawling megacities. Birmingham and Manchester are pretty big, relatively speaking, but it's nothing like China, the US or India, for example, who have multiple megacities with gigantic skyscrapers and sprawling city spaces. Fun fact, China actually has over 100 cities with more than 1 million population.
That's insane.
According to the UK Office for National Statistics, or the ONS, the services sector is the largest sector in the UK, accounting for more than 3/4 of the GDP.
I think that's the same in the US.
The industry in the UK comprises of many industries, including finance and business services, consumer-focused industries such as retail, food and beverages, and entertainment. Manufacturing and production contribute to less than 21% of the total GDP, and agriculture contributes to just 0.6%. First of all, let's take
0.6? Wow. That is actually kind of shocking to me, because while I understand that the UK land mass is fairly small, I think it was number 80 for on the landmass scale in terms of nations, but 0.6, not even 1%. Wow. I mean, because when I think about the UK, I think of it being, have a lot of fertile ground, because you get enough rain and you see all those amazing rolling hills that look great for farmland. I mean, I wonder what that is. Is it just not enough space to make a huge agricultural industry? Or I know that in the U.S. the agriculture industry is huge, which I mean makes sense because there's a lot of space, and a lot of that ground is very fertile, especially in the middle of the country. But wow, that's just surprising to me. And as for manufacturing, I'm sure the UK has had the same issue we've had in America, that our politicians have sold out our manufacturing industry and they've sent all those jobs overseas. And it's a shame. It's really hurt a lot of people, especially in the manufacturing sector. So, yeah. So anyways, guys, let's go ahead and continue.
A more in-depth look at GDP, the gross domestic product. This is how much a country produces and measures how big its economy is. Production translates into income because everything produced and sold gets paid for, and those payments find their way into somebody's pocket, whether through wages, rents, returns on stocks, or pensions. The USA is by far the largest economy by GDP, with over 20 trillion US dollars, nearly a quarter of the global production. This gives it a huge clout in international relations. The market size means it can dictate terms on accessing its market, as other countries would love to access such a market. As mentioned earlier, the UK's GDP is around 3 trillion, which puts it 5th in the world, about 3.3% of global production. This makes the UK a very important global economy.
Absolutely.
On GDP, China is the second largest, with around 13 trillion and rising, putting it at around 15 or 16%
13 trillion. I thought it was a little higher than that.
Next, GDP per capita. This shows roughly how rich a country's citizens are by dividing GDP by population. It shows how much each person gets if wealth were shared equally, which of course does not happen, but it's still a useful measure. So while GDP shows how large an economy is, GDP per capita shows how rich it is. On this measure, the UK is around 22nd in the world, with around 43,000 US dollars, well below the likes of Monaco and Luxembourg, but still not too bad.
Aren't
the
we
UK
all?
led the way in industrialization in the late 18th century and developed many industries and institutions that have helped it retain a strong economy. These institutions cannot emerge overnight, and currently very poor countries are developing them, but it will take lots of time. These institutions include rule of law, property rights such as physical and intellectual, competition law, an independent central bank, democracy, contract law, political checks and balances and independent judiciary, bankruptcy laws, welfare state, and compulsory schooling. All of these things help the economy by helping a secure business environment and boosting human capital, that's skills and innovation. People invest knowing the government will not steal their capital. The UK scores very highly on the World Bank's Doing Business report, which measures the business friendliness of the country's regulations. It is kind of a flawed index, but can be used as a snapshot here to show that the UK values business and economic growth. Because of historically accumulated capital and skills, the UK has a huge productive capacity, strong innovation potential, and low costs. And these features make it competitive relative to countries that do not have these human and physical capital endowments. It has a very diversified economy, producing in many different sectors, including many high-value ones such as aerospace supplies and semiconductors. Just recently, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has vowed that the UK will become a superpower in terms of AI, technology, and innovation within the next decade. Many poorer countries have not got much past their primary resource export, which are low value added. This lack of diversity also makes their economies vulnerable to global price dynamics, as primary commodities tend to have volatile prices. The UK and other rich economies with diverse productive bases can absorb price shocks in any sector. If the price of cars were to suddenly fall, then the UK is still producing aeroplanes and semiconductors, so it can
that makes
take
sense.
the hit. But if the likes of oil falls, then places like Saudi Arabia will be hit extremely hard and may not recover. Also, because of historically developed institutions, the UK has relatively stable monetary policies, which are good for business confidence, investment, and international trade. The UK has a leading position in economic affairs to the UN Security Council, or OECD, IMF, World Bank, and its role in giving aid, all of which allow it to defend its interests abroad. Although this is not the only purpose that the UK is involved in these institutions. Also, having a large global market, remember it is the 5th largest in the world, allows the UK some scope to dictate terms to access its market for foreign exports. The UK has a strong financial centre, partly due to the language. English is of course the international business language. Its location at 0° longitude can capture the trading hours of both New York and Tokyo, thus the span of the global finance industry. Its proximity to EU, a huge trading bloc,
that's
and
true.
Historical core competence.
It's a good location.
Historically, the UK benefited from imperialism, looting its colonies and imposing unequal trade treaties on weaker countries in order to take advantage of them and capture most of the benefits of their trade. Look at the East India Company, for example. The rich countries, it could be argued, still take advantage of poorer ones through inciting if poor countries want aid. They do not set protective tariffs that the rich countries themselves use during their own development to nurture industrial development. They impose on poor countries a development model that they did not themselves use and which has many flawed problems. Free market, open borders to capital, and no policies. In short, allowing the advanced Western firms to come in and capture the market. So yes, the UK is still rich, and it is likely to continue to be relatively rich for the near future, because so many of its advantages are due to historical legacy that give the UK huge development advantages and global power and influence. But the UK is not perfect, it does have problems. As stated earlier, per capita measures ignores wealth distribution. The UK has pretty high inequality for a rich country. Figures from Parliament show it is as high as the 1960s and 70s as it is now. The UK is also home to a number of large energy companies, including 2 of the 6 oil and gas superpowers.
That's true, BP
and
British
Royal
Petroleum.
Shell. The UK
Really?
is also
Shell.
rich in a number of natural resources, including coal, tin, limestone, iron ore, salt, clay, chalk, gypsum, lead, and silica.
Really?
Forbes also rated the UK as the best country in the world for doing business. The UK also
Wow.
ranks as the 2nd best country in the world for startups, only behind the US, and ranks as the 8th best country in the world for ease of business. The fact that English is classed as a language of business and billions of people around the world either speak it fluently or as a second language highly benefits the UK. It makes doing business easier and increases efficiency drastically. Imagine a Japanese businessman who only speaks Japanese trying to close a deal with an Ethiopian man. This would prove rather difficult and would require a very specific and unique translator to assist. You may have heard of this little old city in the southeast of England called London. London is classed as the financial capital of the world, sometimes described as the city of cities because each borough is completely different to the next. London is the world's most international and connected financial centre, providing unrivaled access to global markets. It is a magnet for workers from around the world who make up a very diverse pool of financial and professional service specialists. In other words, London is the most influential and important city in the world when it comes to financial markets and business. It is the capital of the former most powerful colony on Earth, and although in the 21st century this no longer exists, its unrivaled importance and an opportunity still remains. London is the world capital for foreign exchange trading with a global market share of 43% of the daily 6.6 trillion global turnover. One of the world's most visited cities, London has something for everyone, from history and culture to fine food and exceedingly good times. With such diversity, London's cultural dynamism makes it among the world's most international cities. It is a city of ideas, an innovator of art and culture. Yes, for the average Joe, it is expensive and life can be quite challenging at times, but for the mega rich, it is a city where business and money is to be made in vast amounts. Incredibly, although the UK is the 5th largest economy in the world and completely dwarfs many larger countries in terms of GDP, out of the top 100 highest market cap companies in the world, only 2 are from the UK. AstraZeneca, the guys who developed one of the COVID-19 vaccines, and Linde, a chemical and gas company worth 172 billion and 160 billion respectively. The UK also does make a considerable amount of income from tourism, pre-pandemic of course. With over 40 million visits in 2019,
Yeah, that's true.
tourism contributed to around 20.
There has to be a lot of tourism
economy. Although just over half of that was spent in London, which was the third most visited city in the world, 21.
That doesn't surprise me.
Behind second place Bangkok and first place Hong Kong. So although the UK is completely and utterly dwarfed by the likes of USA and China in terms of economy size, this is expected as their populations and land size are astronomically bigger. The UK overall is a friendly, welcoming place, and London is one of the most sought after cities to live and work in the world. In my real life job, I work with so many people from across Europe and the world, and they all say how moving to London is everyone's dream. If you want to progress your career and let your dreams come true, then London is the place to be. Thank you so much for watching this video.
That was interesting. Yeah, I think that's probably why it's so expensive to buy a place in London, because so many people want to move there. You know, I already knew that the UK was, you know, a wealthy country, but I didn't know they were number 5. That's really impressive considering the size of the population and the landmass. You know, there's one thing that really stuck out to me. Where was it? You know, most of this made sense. You know, it's a great location in the world. It's, you know, right there by the EU. It's right there at, what do you call that time zone? 0 time, or I can't remember what you call that, but I get what he was saying there. That's a great location. One thing that really stuck out to me was, while I knew that BP, British Petroleum, was a British company, I did not know that the UK had so many natural resources. I'm learning more about the UK as I watch these videos, but the one thing I didn't expect was mining. I just didn't, not to say that no mining takes place there, but I just didn't assume that mining would be that big of an industry there. He didn't really go into detail about how big the mining industry is, but the fact he brought it up at all really says something to the fact that the mining industry must be much bigger than I ever thought even possible. It doesn't surprise me, though, that those natural resources exist there. Just that, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't think of mining being a big industry there, but yeah, most of this video made sense to me. Most of it really wasn't that surprising, except kind of the fact that, like I said, it's really impressive that the UK is number 5 on a list when you're number 80 in landmass and 21 in population. That said something to the work ethic and the ingenuity of the citizens themselves, because you don't become number 5 on the list, you know, having that small of a landmass and that low of a population, you know, without being creative, ingenuitive, and hardworking. So, yeah, that's really impressive. I've used that word impressive a bunch, but it really is. It's really impressive. I wish he had went into detail about kind of the debt. I don't know if the UK has any debt. I mean, most Western nations have debt, so I'm guessing it probably does. But it'd be interesting to see what the debt ratio is to the GDP. And see if it's anywhere near kind of what's happening in the U.S. Because, like I said at the beginning of this video, the U.S. has gone insane, especially over the last, I don't know, we'll say the last 3 presidents. I don't know, last 15 years, I'd say, especially, it's just gone absolutely insane. Our GDP, it's like, I think it's tripled in the last 15 years. I mean, our GDP, our debt ratio. That's insane. But anyways, guys, enough of me rambling. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to share your comments and suggestions about this video or other things you think I might want to check out. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow me on my journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Until next time, peace.